Woof, has it been a month already? Well, I'm back, and I'm still just putting this little world together. Once I'm finished with this little village area, I'm going to have to make the thing I've been dreading this whole time, a menu system. Now, as a hobbyist game maker who's made a large quantity of games, you'd think I'd know how to make a menu system, but I really don't. I've just never really had to. Most of my early games were little RPGs that were too simplistic in form to even need menu systems, and the more complicated games I've made since then have all been side scrollers that didn't need the added complexity of items or other such things that might require a menu system. Well, that's not the case here. There's going to be shops and items and treasures aplenty, and I'm going to need to string something together. Now, the purpose of this project was to make something that wasn't terribly complicated, and I'm realizing the more I go that it's actually more complicated of a project than I thought. So it's occurred to me to wonder why I'm still sticking to this project, because this is typically the part in my process where I just can the whole thing and move on to something else. I think it's because I'm just mentally prepared to publish a game. I once heard someone say that you'll never be anything until you can call yourself that thing. Like, I can't be a game designer until I can proudly say that I am a game designer. But my lack of published work has held me back from that. Every time in my past that I've been near this point, I hesitate because I feel like a fraud. How can I call myself a game designer if I've never published any game? What right have I to put myself on that level when the only things I've made have been for me? Let me ask you something. Is something only meaningful if you've shared it? No, I don't think so. If you love to draw, you are an artist. If you've never sold your art, if you've never shown it to anybody, if you're the only person who has experienced your art, you are still an artist. Art, literature, games, they're only about consumption if you make them about consumption. These sorts of self expressive things aren't meaningless even if they're just for you because it's not about consumption, it's about passion. If you love to make art and you make it in a void, it's still art because it means something to you. You give it meaning. You're the only one that can give it meaning, and the meaning you give it is the only meaning that matters. Anyway, it's time to respond to the comments I got. You're really chill to listen to. Thank you. I want to know what you're going to school for because it doesn't sound like it's going to be art related. Now, as any stranger who's made the mistake of giving me a friendly wave will tell you, I'm a pretty private guy. Now, I don't necessarily want to come out and say what my major is because this channel, though I don't think it's likely, could possibly become a liability for my career if it's linked to me in real life. So, sorry for not answering directly, but I can confirm that though it is not related to art, it is still something that I'm just about as passionate about as game making. It just makes for less interesting videos. It's in the humanities. It counts as like a humanity. That's there you go. As for a topic, what do you think made Zelda and Final Fantasy fun, and what ideas have you come up with to recreate that feeling in your own games? Ooh, yes. I could talk about this for hours, and I don't have that much game development footage, so I'm gonna try not to ramble. But I'd argue that the word of the day is exploration. So I'll be the first to admit that nostalgia is no small part of why I love these games. I played them when I was younger, so they'll always have a special place in my heart. But the feeling of discovering a world full of secrets is just universally awesome. Elder Scrolls, Zelda, both the classics, and Breath of the Wild, Final Fantasy, the old ones anyway. These games give me a feeling that is precious beyond measure to me, and that feeling is hard to articulate. So I'll give examples. It's that feeling when you're playing Zelda and you drop a bomb to kill an enemy, and it uncovers a little secret. It's that feeling when you're sailing around in your ship and you notice a little cave you haven't explored. It's that feeling you get when you decide to investigate something that looks innocuous and turns out to be like a whole thing. It's that feeling when you're pursuing something other than the main quest, not because you have to, but because it's interesting and fun in and of itself. It's that feeling you get when you get the reward at the end of the road and realize that it didn't actually matter what was at the end of the road. I don't know how you'd call that feeling, but that's what I want my game to feel like. I want the player to know that they could just do the main objective and choose not to anyway. I want them to be driven to look for a sword upgrade, but I want them to find the same magic in the world that I've built as I found in the worlds that Miyamoto and Igarashi built. That's what made those games fun to me. It was that feeling. That feeling I can't put into words, but when I talk about it, you know what I mean.